The Miami Dolphins are in a huge prove year, and that starts at the top with head coach Mike McDaniel. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the biggest things Mike McDaniel needs to prove in 2025. Now, the number one thing is the culture. Obviously, it has been noted how the Dolphins' culture has been lacking. Comments from the outside, comments from the inside. Overall, the culture needs improving. The Dolphins in the Mike McDaniel era did a lot of veteran talent acquisition, and in doing so, may have kind of disrupted any potential to build the culture from the ground up with draft classes and kind of in the in-house players. But the Dolphins kind of identified that with the whole Tyreek, Jalen Ramsey shenanigans, worked on kind of letting some of those players go. I think Tyreek will be gone next year. And then really emphasizing building the culture with your star players in Tua Tagovailoa, rewarding Zach Sealer, and then in the draft class kind of getting those kind of players that you want in Kenneth Grant and Jonas Avayaniah. So building the culture, obviously a lot of it is talent acquisition. The players you get, I believe it was John Gruden I just heard say today, where your culture is set by your best players and the example that they have. And obviously you can keep players in line. Tyreek Hill had success in Kansas City. But there's a lot of self-governance. Mike McDaniel has very much noted that it is a player-led locker room, which I don't think there's that big of an issue. But you have to get the right people in, make sure that your top guys can keep the other guys in line. And you're seeing more of that with quarterback Tua Tagovailoa and the self-governance, Jordan Brooks. Like, the Dolphins are getting to a point where their best players are the ones setting the example with Tua, Sealer, Jordan Brooks. They're slowly getting there. And then, like I said, with the draft class, the young guys, some of the tweaks, like Mike McDaniel is being more vocal about. I mean, we saw the thing where 5 players accounted for 50% of the fines last year, which you can assume at least Tyreek and Ramsey made up 2 of those 5 players. I'm curious who those other 3 are. But you can see there's a shift. The way the players are talking, there's a lot less noise coming out from the Dolphins locker room. So I'm liking that. You saw the whole thing on the sideline in the preseason where Mike McDaniel sent players back out last week to put on their jerseys after they were done playing. This week, everyone was on the sideline with their jerseys on. So once again, it's a small thing. Will that translate to wins? Putting your jerseys on isn't going to translate to wins, but setting that example, that culture, holding people to a higher standard, I think will. So I'm liking what I'm seeing there, but obviously the proof will be in the pudding. We'll see how they do through adversity. Another great quote, I think it might have been Mike McDaniel's, like, culture doesn't show when things are going well. Culture shows when you lose 2 games in a row. How does your team respond? And honestly, to Mike McDaniel's credit, last year, the Dolphins went through so many ups and downs, and they were fighting till the end of the season. There was just a lot of bad noise and Tyreek, Ramsey, those kind of things happening. But this team never gave up last year, and I'm expecting them to continue to grow in that area, and I'm excited to see. Like I said, I think the Dolphins are finally in a spot where there's a more youth resurgence, and their veteran players are stand-up people for the most part. So I think it's heading in the right direction, but this season will be very telling. The next thing Mike McDaniel needs to prove in 2025 is running the football.
Run the dang ball!
Mike McDaniel got his name for how creative he was in the running game. We've seen it in the Dolphins past 3 years. It's just about the level of consistency and being able to do it against good teams. Obviously, I believe the Dolphins in 2023 were like second in running the football, but if you look about it, like, a lot of that was skewed from when the Dolphins were destroying bad teams. Now, the biggest thing for the Miami Dolphins against these good teams is these good teams are able to stop the run with limited resources. And then in doing so, they can put more resources into stopping the pass and getting into those passing windows they know the Dolphins like to use. So the counterpunch to that is you have to be able to punish these teams who want to commit less resources to stopping the run and be able to stick with running the football and run it down their throats, essentially. And the Dolphins, in moments, have shown the commitment. You hear McDaniel say it, and then he does it for a game, and then it goes away. I saw a little bit of growth last year. I think back to when Tua got hurt, and he finally was willing to commit to running the football against the Colts. And we ran the ball very successfully. We should have won the game, but there was missed kicks, a fumble, and other reasons why we lost that game. But the commitment to the run was evident. And then I think back to the Bills game, the second Bills game, where the Bills are going to run nickel defense, and they're going to basically not leave nickel the entire game, and you have to be able to punish that. And the Dolphins were effectively running the football. I think it was one of Mike McDaniel's best called games, and we should have won the game had there not been a fumble and then other crazy things. But overall, the offense did a tremendous job. Like, that kind of diligence in running the football needs to be consistent, game in, game out. Once again, if people want to overload the box, then by all means, throw the ball across the yard. We're going to be a throwing team in general. But I'm just saying there needs to be more commitment to punish these teams for not committing resources to stopping the run. And Mike McDaniel has acknowledged that. We improved our interior offensive line. So I'm hoping to be able to see more consistent running game against good fronts, especially when they're not committing a lot to stopping the run and their secondaries are playing far off, trying to key in on stopping the pass, which we see very evidently. That's why we threw so many screens, was because they were playing so far back, but we couldn't run the ball. So we were just throwing to the perimeter, and a lot of the screens were successful. I know they were annoying for fans to see, but that is why we saw it. I've got two last things. The third thing is the proper use of challenges for Mike McDaniel. Now, I will say I a lot of the times on Mike McDaniel's side with some of the challenges where people are frustrated that Mike McDaniel on a crucial third quarter play where it's 50-50 and you're like, why are you wasting a challenge? Like, it's like, if that was a fumble and we recover the football, like, that's a huge swing. I'm fine using a challenge that it might not go our way, but it could lead to a huge swing. That I don't care about. But there's just like a level of missed challenges. There were some that were just made you raise your eyebrows. Like, that's clearly not going to get overturned. So being more effective with challenges. Once again, I don't hate if it's like a 40-60, likely to not get overturned, but it'd be a huge swing in the game. If it does, I'm fine throwing a challenge there. There's just some poor use of challenges that he needs to at least like assign someone. There just needs to be a better level of consistency in the effectiveness of his use of challenges. That's definitely probably one of the biggest game management things that he needs to improve upon. Small little key for things he needs to improve upon, but it's definitely evident. And then the last and honestly most important thing for Mike McDaniel to prove in 2025 is playing well in big games. Now, people love to label so many different things as to why the Dolphins struggle in big games. They're soft, Tua's not good against good teams, yada, yada, yada. The ultimate thing for the Dolphins not playing well in big games is just there's a lack of consistency. There's been big games where the offense has showed up and then the defense hasn't. The defense has showed up and the offense hasn't. They're in it and then something happens, or they get boat raced out the gates and then it flips on its head. I think back to the one Baltimore game in 2023 is the one where Bradley Chubb got hurt. We got beat like 53. I think it was for the 1 seed. And the Dolphins offense was hanging there. It was like the Ravens scored immediately. The Dolphins scored. The Ravens scored. And then Tua drops a dime to Tyreek and he drops it and we don't score. And then it's 14-7 and our defense just can't get a stop. And then our offense is forced to try and play at that pace to try and keep up with the Ravens offense. And it eventually kind of flips on its head, where it's like, that was on the defense. Like, yes, the offense on paper didn't look like they were playing well, but they were trying to keep up with a crazy pace that the Ravens offense were setting. And then there's times where the defense will show up. I think the one Eagles game, I can't think of specific games, but there's definitely moments where like the defense will show up and then the offense won't. This most recent Packers game on Thanksgiving, which was a huge game, people talking about the cold and everything, it's like by the time the Dolphins offense had a legit shot, because there was the Packers scored on their first drive and then there was a muff punt. By the time the Dolphins offense had the football for the first time, they were down 14-0. And I think Tua had two bad drives. Aside from that, was playing pretty well. But just starting so poorly and you're putting yourself in such a hole, like, I feel like there's always something like that. An instance where the defense played well, the last game of the season, Bills-Dolphins to win the division, the defense did a great job, the offense struggled mightily. So there's always these instances where it's like the defense will show up or the offense won't, the offense will show up, the defense won't. We just need consistency. If a bad play happens, like, don't allow it to affect the entire team. Like the muff punt, you go down 14-0 against the Packers, and then like immediately there's like a false start and a sack, and like just trying to not let things spiral out of control, playing more consistently across both sides of the football, I think is the biggest thing. Obviously, we finally have consistency at the defensive coordinator position, so maybe we can make more of a judgment of like, okay, maybe it's just the offense struggling and the defense will show up more. But ultimately, we need to play well in big games, offensively, defensively, special teams. I think we finally improved our special teams. Ackerman seems like a good coordinator, so ultimately, that's how this season is going to be defined, how well we do against these good teams. But overall, those are the spots that Mike McDaniel needs to improve in 2025. Comment your thoughts down below. Where do you need to see him improve? Like and subscribe to help the channel grow. And until next time, fins up.